The Miller Park Zoo is on a mission to educate the public, and here today with an animal ambassador is Julia. Who have you brought us to meet today?
This is Fiona. She is a New Caledonia giant gecko, the largest species of gecko in the entire world.
Wow. Okay, I have so many questions. Starting with, I'm looking at her coloring. So is she a gecko that camouflages like a lot of the other geckos that you see?
Yeah, she's trying to blend in to avoid predation. She's living in the canopies in New Caledonia. So rainforest type habitat in an island near Australia.
And I see her eyes are very interesting looking. Why do they look so crazy?
So she doesn't have eyelids like you and I have. She can't blink to get her eyes wet. She actually licks them.
What?
Yep, that's how she lubricates her eyes. She licks them.
Okay.
So they're open all the time. She needs to blend in.
Right.
Those eyes, if they're bright orange or a bright warning color, they're gonna stick out. But she has camouflage even in her eyes.
That's incredible. Okay, and how do these geckos reproduce?
So they are egg layers. She is laying 2 eggs each time she lays a clutch. Only 2, which is wild.
Really?
Yes, and then she can lay up to 4 clutches each breeding season. It takes her about 2 to 3 months to incubate them.
Okay.
But I think the coolest part about it is that one of these animals is kind of like our American alligators. Those eggs, their gender is temperature incubation dependent.
Oh, like turtles.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So if we have a short incubation period with high temperatures, we're likely going to get a male gecko out of it, and then the opposite would be true for females.
That is interesting. Okay, I have so many more follow-up questions about that. So are these species animals that can need partners like every single time that they lay a clutch of eggs, or once they've mated, can they keep laying clutches of eggs that are fertilized? How does that work?
They do need to pair up each breeding season to have eggs each time. The amount of eggs that she produces, the clutches she produces, is due to each time she mates, but also due to the nutrients she has.
Okay.
Mama's gonna take care of herself first, that's biological.
Right.
So if her body needs the nutrients, she's not gonna lay eggs because that's exhausting.
That makes sense. And speaking of nutrients, what do they eat?
She eats nectar, she eats fruits, she eats vegetation. She'll even eat invertebrates, small animals like other lizards and even pinky mice.
Okay, do they take care of their babies, or are their babies in danger of being their prey?
Not their prey, but most of our reptiles aren't really in the child care business. Once you're hatched, you're good to go. You're a little lizard and you've got this. At least they hope.
They hope. And about how big are they when they're born?
They're pretty small when they're born. They hatch out of those tiny eggs, but they get to be 14 inches long.
Okay, so that's the giant part. Now, are these like the lizards that if they're in danger, they can shed their tail, or how does that work? What is their defense
mechanism? Glad you brought it up. That is one of their defense mechanisms. So she can lose that tail, she can drop it, and then she will regenerate it afterwards. The other thing she can do to avoid predation is this species is known for their vocalizations.
Okay.
Yips, barks, growls. She's gonna sound a lot bigger than she actually is to avoid being eaten.
Wow.
That's also how she attracts mates, defends her territory.
And how long are their tongues? You mentioned that she has to lick her eyes to keep them lubricated, and I assume that that's how they maybe catch a fly or something like that. How long are these tongues?
So chameleons have the long tongues.
Okay.
She actually has a full row of teeth in there. She doesn't need her tongue to grab that. So her tongue is just about the length of her eyeballs, so reaching up to there. Other than that, she's grabbing prey with her mouth.
That's so interesting. I feel like I just want to sit and watch her for a day and see when she opens it and all these things that you're talking about. Now, you had mentioned to me, I see she's sort of grabbing onto your hands. What do her feet feel like? So it's a common misconception that she's sticky or that she's using magnetism to hold on to me. She has tiny little pads on her feet that have rows on them that have these little tiny hairs that actually fit in between the molecules of the surface that she's on, which is how you see geckos climb up walls and glass seemingly with ease, because
they're in between the molecules.
That is so cool.
Do you like to touch her?
I would like to.
Yeah, right on her back.
Okay.
She has these tiny little scales, so she's softer than most reptiles. And she does shed, but in patches.
Okay.
So when reptiles eat, they grow, then they shed. And the best part about geckos shedding is sometimes they have little gloves that come off.
Really? And then is it like a snake where you have an entire molt, or?
No, little patches.
Little patches,
so
okay.
the most I hope for is a foot that comes off. Sometimes you get a full tail. Other than that, you're getting tiny little parts.
Getting tiny little
parts.
Well, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, how do you get your ambassador animals at the zoo?
So usually they come from other zoos. Fiona here came to us from the Bronx Zoo. So it's a big puzzle to try and fit animals where they fit without taking them from the wild. We're here to educate the public about animals in the wild, care about their conservation, but not pull them from there. So they're coming from other zoos and fitting in the best place possible.
That makes sense. And you said Fiona is sort of her shortened name. She goes by Princess Fiona, right? And she has a buddy at the zoo.
She does. We have Andre the giant gecko, and then we have Farquaad. So we do have 3 species. Fiona lives with Andre, so you can come try and find them. It's a little difficult because that camouflage is so good, so it might take you some time, and then Farquaad actually lives alone.
And I like that they're named after characters. Who names the animals at the zoo?
The zookeepers usually, or our education department. Sometimes we do have special opportunities for our donors to name animals. So we do have a mulefoot hog, Rainbow Sparkles, that was named by a donor.
Okay, well there you go. Well, thank you so much for bringing Fiona. It was very nice to meet you. Thank you as always for coming in for all of this information. And if you want more information about the Miller Park Zoo, you can visit us on the web after the show at ciLiving.tv.